June 16th, 2019, the Solemnity of the Most Holy Trinity. And today in the United States of America, we celebrate Father's Day in honor of all the fathers who have brought new life into this world, those who have been for us strength and holiness. I wish you a happy Father's Day. I would also like to take this opportunity to give a special shout out to my father who lives in Florida. May you have a happy Father's Day, and know that I always love you tremendously and will continue to pray for you each and every day.
Happy Father's Day, Dad! And happy Father's Day to our spiritual dad, Bob Pita.
Happy Father's Day to my dad and all the fathers out there.
Good morning, Father. Happy Father's Day to you, too.
Happy Father's Day to my dad and happy Father's Day to all the fathers. And thank you for all that you do for our family and for the community.
I have to say, no, on the Mother's Day, they were greeting each other and clapping.
I believe one of the important aspects on a day like today is to discuss the role of fatherhood. Fathers in the life of their children are very different than mothers. I know that the world wants to try to tell us that it's just a matter of roles, but there is something that is intrinsic to being a father that is unique and helps children to grow in holiness. I did hear an interesting statistic last fall that the retention rate for young people in church is linked to the attendance at church of the father. Of course, the researchers who did the study don't really give cause and effect. They just say that we found some sort of a correlation, which isn't proof, but does show that there is something about the presence of Father, the faith of the Father, and how the Father lives that faith. Now, what this presenter said was something that I kind of always believed implicitly, but never had proof. I always said that if you win the mother, you'll win the children for a time, but if you win the father, you do win the family. Now, I'll confirm right now, when we were children, my father was the regular churchgoer. He brought us all to church every week. There was no negotiations on this, even into our teen years. We went to church as a family at his insistence. I think nowadays especially, fatherhood has been under attack by society. For some reason, fathers, being men of the family, are being called into question. And certainly at this point right now, I don't want to enter into the debate that's out there over gender roles, because there are certain things intrinsic to the being that go beyond roles. There has always been that sense that fathers were providers and fathers were gatherers and they were the hunters who brought in for the family. And in certain situations that made sense.
Most of the time, we will not understand the real suffering and the hardship taken by our fathers. Because always in Indian tradition, the mothers are there in the home and they are looking after the children and feeding them and taking care of them. But the father will be all the day, they will be away from the home.
When the attack came, it came in the sense of going after the role that someone played. So the father, being the provider, came under attack. And that, I believe, was the beginning of the end when it came to our understanding of masculinity linked to fatherhood. A lot of the psychologists and social scientists started to go after certain male qualities, such as assertiveness or aggressiveness or leadership, and called it into question in the minds of many.
Are men and women different? Yeah, I'd say, in my opinion, I'd say they're different physically. Obviously, men are stronger than women naturally.
Well, definitely there's differences. I think a mother's role is more to be nurturing in the sense of bringing love and helping a child along the way, whereas a father is also very nurturing, but his role is to teach and reveal certain things to a child, and together the mother and the father complement each other.
But one of the aspects of fatherhood is an intrinsic quality of being the initiator of the gift, the one who is the tone setter, if you will.
Well, I think there's definitely a distinct difference between a mother and a father, and that's like physically. Obviously, the mother is the one that carries the child, but the father, from what I was explained by, is, well, okay, in a marriage, right, the man is supposed to initiate that relationship.
And so I will say this much. There is something about the difference between males and females, masculinity and femininity, that's not just tied to a role or to an action, but is intrinsic to being itself. All right, so maybe I do want to get into this discussion of masculinity and femininity after all. See, one of the things that I learned by studying Pope John Paul II's theology of the body is that there is a reality that is beyond reality. We call it metaphysics. And when you study metaphysics, you study the being. You don't just study the physicalness, but what's beyond the physicalness.
I think as humans, I don't know, maybe it's part of our human nature, we just prescribe roles onto an individual. And so that's where, expectations are expected, that this person needs to fill this role. But I don't think we've clearly defined what those roles are, or even if we need to assign those roles.
Okay, we were just standing here and little Wasabi flew. He flew from the deck of the desk up on top of the basket. Now, I didn't have the camera going, so I didn't catch that part of it, but he flew up there. I am going to admit that the hardest part of these discussions is to remind everybody that just because there's a difference doesn't mean there's an inequality between men and women. We are equal in dignity, but different in our being. So yes, there is an essential difference between men and women, a difference that's created by God, not by human beings. Just look at the creation story in Genesis. God created them male and female. Right from the beginning, every species pretty much out there has a male and a female.
The intention behind the creation is supporting each other. After creating the men in the image and likeness of God, God found that it is not good the man to be alone. See, for the support for him, he created the woman as the partner of him.
Do you believe that at this time we're more divided than ever?
One of the questions that first came to my mind when Jan asked her question is, what do we mean by divided? Human beings have been divided since the original sin. Adam and Eve, who used to be in union with one another perfectly, now had a division between them. So more divided than ever? I don't know if I would make that argument. Have there been divisions, and are these divisions accentuated today? Absolutely. So now here's one of the things in Jan's question. Let's look at the very origins of the human species, the human people, the beings that we are. And right from the very beginning, there was a difference between male and female, a division between the man and the woman after the fall, a division between God and man, and a division between the man and the woman.
Things that we can't control. That's the thing. People think that they can control a lot of things. They can even control their gender, but you can also not control a whole bunch of other things. So I think that if you sorry to dumb it down, but as a colloquialism, soul gender, that we have no control over. If he freaks out, he might poop on you.
Okay, I'm not. I really didn't want a bird on me, but okay.
Strong doesn't mean superior. I mean, you could be smarter. That can make you superior.
Am I pronouncing that right? Malankara.
Malankara in English.
Mass in English.
Malankara.
Malankara.
I was telling her one day we can celebrate
Yeah.
Malankara Mass in English.
Yeah, you should. I want to see it. I want to see the differences.
Oh, we need to bring the scale. He's gonna poop on it.
3.7 ounces, so he's roughly unchanged. In fact, he's actually a tenth of an ounce less.
Okay, so I've got to go up into the attic here to check on some leakage that we're seeing from the air conditioning here. Always a fun thing. Got to find out why. Because when you're a pastor, you have to do everything. Okay, so we have this catwalk above the church here, and I'm coming up here to check on the compressors and everything that are up here. Well, I went up into the catwalk. There's nothing evident up there. There is a spot right here where the water is supposed to vent out. It could be coming from there. All right, well, my preliminary guess is that the vent hose is leaking in. I'm seeing it coming out from the base structure. Becoming kind of clear to me that one of the problems that we're going to have if we want to talk about masculinity and femininity is the problem of what social engineering has done. Basically reducing masculinity and femininity to roles or characteristics. If that's all it is, then the conversation will die before it even begins.
In differences between mothers and fathers, I think I don't really know what the distinct difference is.
I truly believe in a metaphysical sense that at the very foundation of existence, there is a difference between the masculinity and femininity, between fatherhood and motherhood. It's more than just a role, but it's the way of existence, the way of being.
People were thinking on even on a soul or spiritual level, because the idea of soul kind of like varies from person to person. And they were saying like at your core, when you're like a spirit or something, people think that you're like the same kind of spirit. And I was like, no, that's kind of not how it works either. Because what was it that like even on a soul level, if you want to call it that, we have our own uniqueness and individuality down to, if you want to call it gender, you can call it gender.
And what does it make it so hard for people to grasp is that we are so pounded with this imagery, this thought, if you will, that it's coming down to just the physical, and everybody leaves out the metaphysical.
You're wanting perfection, but you can never have perfection because we're all broken human beings. So we're gonna fail. We're gonna disappoint people. So, and the only person who can't disappoint you is God.
And so here's my frustration today. It was when I studied the theology of the body that the metaphysical reality of masculinity, femininity, fatherhood, motherhood came so clear to me. And that just can't be summarized in a 10, 15-minute vlog. It's just not going to happen.